Good afternoon to you. Mark South HurricaneTrack here. Thursday now, the 5th of September, 2024. Good of you to join me this afternoon. We're going to talk about this bag of lemons and all that implies out there in the Atlantic. Yes, you can look at it from more than just one perspective. A little play on words there. 5 areas, pretty remarkable to see, even though we know that all 5 of these areas are probably not going to go on to become hurricanes. But I should remind you, it's not always about the hurricane. It's about the impacts at the end of the day, and especially the Northwest Gulf system, which we will look at closer. That is bringing some impacts in the form of very heavy rain from time to time for our friends in Texas and Louisiana. And it is also doing something beneficial. We'll look at that as well. All right? Again, thanks for joining me. It's good to have you with me. Let's get started. Here's our 5 X's. We just need some O's and a few more of them, and we'd have a football team, wouldn't we? 21 total. You'd have a full set of players. Anyway, no sports analogies today. We'll try to stay away from that. So here's our first system. In the Northwest Gulf, 90% chance it does not go on to become a tropical cyclone. This is all just technical stuff. Remember, it's labels and categories and things like that. But the end of the day, it's about the impacts. If we look down here at the radar scope, oh yeah, it's definitely bringing some impacts, and you can clearly see the rotation with our system here just off of the Galveston area up towards Bolivar and High Island. Southwest Louisiana is going to get one of these bands coming in, and the rain shield extends all the way over into southeast Louisiana, and you got the I-10 corridor that goes through there, a major route for commerce, travel, you name it, and this is impactful. It is going to continue to impact the Baton Rouge area and eventually maybe over towards New Orleans. You got major airports there. So impacts, people. It's not even a depression. And boy, remember, wasn't it 2016 that we had that low that just came across and milled around over here and dumped ridiculous amounts of rain? Even our good friend Rob Perillo over there at KATC in Lafayette had his house flooded. We remember, hopefully we do, because these systems, even without a name, can bring all kinds of significant impacts. So whether or not this continues to develop further, I don't want to say it matters little, but it matters little, right? Because the impacts are right in front of you. So just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, it's going to mill around there for the next several days. Next system down here, approaching the Gulf of Honduras. 20% chance that this goes on to further develop, but remember, again, it's about the impacts, and this will bring heavy rain for parts of Central America. This system between Hatteras and Bermuda, looking a little bit more, emphatic today is, I guess, a good word for it, and it is tagged right there as Invest Area 99L, or AL99, technically speaking. So for the first time since Ernesto, we have an invest area. Wow, it's been that quiet. It's a non-tropical area of low pressure. The National Hurricane Center does do advisories and so forth for our subtropical systems, and that's basically where the energy is not quite as concentrated around a warm core center. Think of it as just a hybrid. Subtropical, meaning it's happening generally out of the tropics. It has a combination of features from a mid-latitude storm, where the energy is spread out over a larger area, and some tropical characteristics as well, but not all of one or all of the other. It's a blend, so we call it subtropical. Non-tropical in this case, and it might further develop. There are some thunderstorms with it. I'll show you that as we go forward as well, all right? Then we got this system down here, 10% chance of further development. Generally, not very favorable, but later on, the outlook there says, by early next week, environmental conditions could become more conducive for some slow development while the system moves over the southwestern Atlantic Ocean. That means somewhere over here. So we have to watch, because after all, we know what time of year it is, and we've been lucky so far since Ernesto, and we just don't want to turn a blind eye to all this, thinking, oh, everything's going to be fine, and then something comes up and surprises us. We're a smart crowd here, right? We're not going to let that happen. Then we've got this elongated trough of low pressure. Boy, that's an understatement. Sitting out over the eastern Atlantic roughly. And again, that might encounter some better conditions. Generally off the coast of Africa right now, This is all just in a real mess, not conducive, dry air, all that kind of stuff. It's just in a funk. Plus, we've got the negative in terms of impacts for developing systems phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, the MJO, but that looks like it's going to change in the future. It's hard to talk about the future anymore, considering that we thought we'd be somewhere else right now, right? But we move forward. We continue to trust the weather forecast and the science, and we see what we get. All right? It's not always about being 100%. Remember that. So this is interesting here. Michael Lowry, and it's interesting what he's saying here because it has relevance of how these systems are not fully tropical. They're not coming from these big tropical waves or whatever. Your seedlings can come from different sources. So Michael says here, may have just needed a little Barc Clinic forcing to jumpstart the Atlantic. And that's just a meteorological term in terms of, instead of just regular tropical forcing where the atmosphere naturally is able to rise and create convection, you have Barc Clinic processes where a front kind of impinges on something and it's just a different mechanism to get convection to fire. There are lots of different ways to do it. Both of these systems, I like the way he put this, from a meteorological perspective, when you're examining how something looks in the tropics, and they're not winning any beauty contest here. They both look rather anemic and off-center or whatever, but both of our frontal lobes, which that's what they are showing some spunk today. And there's the one on the left, that's the Northwest Gulf. This is the one sitting out over the Atlantic between Hatteras and Bermuda. So let's look at these on the satellite animation here from Tropical Tidbits. There's our system 99L, and there's the spin, the low pressure area, and then right around it, yeah, there are some thunderstorms, but the front draped all through here, you can clearly see that, and that's giving it that Barc Clinic forcing. Just a little extra pushing, like if a whole bunch of people, this is a good analogy, I think this is a good way to explain it. If you're standing by yourself in a room, a big room, and you're minding your own business, nobody's impinging on you, everything's good. But you get a crowd that comes in there, and people are bumping into you and whatever, they probably start to irritate you and get you all upset, for the lack of a more inappropriate word, right? And that's forcing. You're getting forced into that position, and that's kind of what these systems do. Out over the Atlantic, that tropical wave and this one over here, they're by themselves. And there's no forcing. There's nothing in the upper atmosphere to just really let that convection go. And there's no front pushing down on them. That's the crowd analogy there, to get these things agitated and get them started. It's just not there in the deep tropics yet. But we do have that forcing up and along this front. And lo and behold, both of these systems are trying to go, which shows us, this is important, once the forcing is there, we do need to be ready, because we could get a burst of 2 or 3, maybe more, simultaneous storms or hurricanes down the road. And yes, we still have through November 30th. We need to remember that. And we need to remember it's not just a United States problem. People in the Caribbean and elsewhere, you definitely need to be paying attention well into November. We remember Wrong Way Lenny back in November 1999, I think it was. It went from west to east. Far from over. All right. This is where there is definitely some tropical forcing, and literally so. This is Andrew, and Andrew's actually on our over on our Discord, part of our Patreon community, and a wonderful contributor there, also on Twitter. And so I figured I like this. This is good. It helps me get my content ready. So we've got this typhoon over there, Super Typhoon Yagi, and it gets a different name if it's in the Philippine area of responsibility, and I guess that's Intang or something like that. And it went through an eye wall replacement cycle, quickly rebounded from that, and boy, oh boy, this one is headed toward the Guangdong and Hainan provinces of China. Boy, am I glad those were fairly easy to pronounce. And they are going to experience their strongest typhoon impact within the last 10 years. And this, my friends, is also very important, not just covering geography of elsewhere in the world where there's tropical cyclone activity, but what this means, that is where our natural forcing in the tropics is that allows that upward motion, and that will be moving eastward. The Madden-Julian oscillation, the models are showing it. Yes, the models can be wrong. We're in this weird area now where, what do we believe anymore? I get it. But if they are to be believed, the models are suggesting and it just naturally does this. The MJO does naturally progress from west to east. This is coming, this forcing. Now, whether or not we get any kind of hurricane development out of it, well, that remains to be seen. So, good tweet there from Andrew. We appreciate that. I know I do. So it makes my job easier, as does this. Tropical Tidbits and their wonderful floaters. Dr. Levi Cowan always does such a great job. Look at that. That is a sight to behold. You hate to see it when they impact land. But other than that, and ship interest, marine interest, certainly, these are absolutely incredible to see a tropical cyclone doing its thing. One of the most unique weather phenomenon on our planet. The eye wall of one of these things, a great hurricane researcher once said, the eye wall of a hurricane is different as the everyday weather is on Jupiter. And that's true. I don't remember who said that. I'll have to go back. I think it was in a NOAA presentation. I'll have to look that up sometime. But it is true. If you've been in enough of them like I have and some of the other great hurricane chasers of the world, whew, it is something else. And then you get into that eye. Wow. So this is headed for all oogling over this thing aside for a population area, and then it's eventually going to cross over and impact parts of Vietnam, it looks like. So that's going to be a big problem there. The dashboard from Tropical Tidbits, there it is, and this is the Joint Typhoon Warning Center track map as to where this system will end up over time. Yeah, lots of impacts coming up. But again, I look at this and think, okay, down the road, the forcing in the atmosphere over here that's giving us this will progress eastward. East is to the right there on the graphic, and eventually make its way over into the Atlantic Basin. And I can prove it to you, or at least the theory. Everything's just theory until it's reality, right? We do see this starting to show up in some of the longer range modeling. So this is going to be one of those rare times that I'll show you modeling out to 16 days to prove a point. Not, and I just cringe that I have to justify stuff, it's not for likes and shares and engagement and profit. It's to prove a point, and you will understand as I show you. So this is the GFS at the 850 millibar level, the 12Z run from today. And there are, let's use black because that'll pop better. There are our systems. You see, the energy's spread out. That's so neat. Very easy to prove the point there. That's our system 99L off the Carolina coast. There's Bermuda, by the way. And right there. Oh, one thing about this, with it spinning out here, we're coming up on the weekend. Waters are still warm over here. Probably going to see an increase in rip currents, okay? And, you know, speaking of profiting and likes and engagements, if you're dead, you can't subscribe to my channel. And I'm very serious about that. That's not even a joke. You have to be careful. You get a little system out there, that's what I mean. It's impacts. That will generate additional energy into the ocean. So Weather Service out of Wakefield, Weather Service Morehead City, Weather Service Wilmington probably will see some rip current problems coming up. Pay attention to that if you're headed to the beaches this weekend. Again, those waters are still warm enough to do such things, and you got to be careful. We don't need any more of our wonderful people in body bags because they were killed in rip currents. 100% preventable. Very, very serious about that. All right, so there's that energy. There's our system in the Northwest Gulf, as innocuous as it looks. A little bit of energy there. Supposedly some energy there and some energy here. There are our 5 lemons in the GFS realm. All right, so let's move this out a few days, and we can see what happens with our systems there. Most of this energy just gets strung out, generally speaking. This is just a big mismatch. Mishmash? Whatever. It's a hodgepodge. And mishmash, that's hard to say. Then you start to say mismatch. Anyway, it is a mess out there. But look what happens here at 102 hours. That right there. That has my attention. Now, this isn't when the MJO starts to come back. Not yet. We're still a little early. But we're starting to see signs that things are aligning better for systems to develop. This is 102 hours out. So Monday afternoon coming up, September 9th. Let's look at it real quick from the moisture perspective, the humidity and whatnot. Oh, yeah. There you go. There's your little pouch of energy all by itself sitting out there, not entangled in with the monsoon trough, presumably. And there's your dry air, still a big problem out here with, you know, keeping, it's good for us if you don't like hurricanes. And from the research side, you know, notwithstanding, Nobody likes them because they are very messy and destructive. We know that, but they are certainly fascinating to watch. And when you see this seedling right here getting ready to go, it is intriguing. It really is. There's the mystery behind, okay, what will it do? So to my point, like I was saying, let's look at this over the next 2 weeks. Let's track this feature right here and see what happens with it, all right? And then I'll tell you how this all matches up with this tab right up here. Very important stuff. It's all connected. So there it goes. It comes out into the Atlantic, and it develops rather quickly. I say rather quickly. We're still talking 6 days there. There's day 7. And if we stop just right here, which today, again, we're not, this goes out to the graphical tropical weather outlook from the Hurricane Center. Theirs do go out 7 days. It might not be long that we'll see that get introduced as a yellow area, potentially. So we'll see. Was that actually part of this? I want to make sure I didn't mix this up. No. So that would be something new. I was just making sure that's not it. Of course it's not it. That's an X that's already there. Sorry, I distracted myself. So that's a week out. And then let's just keep going, all right? So there's 7, there's day 8, 9, and then finally day 10. A well-developed tropical cyclone out there. It goes on north and east of the islands. Looks like it's going to turn out to sea, staying out to sea, whatever. But that's still 2 weeks out, so forth and so on. But here's what I want you to see. Look at the day, September 21st. 2 weeks out, 384. It's actually 16 days out. That is very important. Before we get to this tweet here from Eric, let me show you some more. There's our system right now over Africa. Yes, we can see that through satellite data. It's incredible. It really is. That's the energy that turns into this over in the Atlantic 2 weeks later. We can already see it over Africa in the modeling and in reality, just looking at cloud shots and vorticity signatures. Watch as it moves through. You can clearly see it. Isn't that really neat? I think it is. It's fascinating. But it's also extremely important because look at the latitude that it's coming off. And Levi's site here, you can just mouse over it. The latitude is 11, right? 11 degrees north latitude for the center, whatever. That is important because these have been coming off much farther to the north, relatively speaking. And even some of these pieces of energy have been rotating all the way up into here towards the Mediterranean, for goodness sakes. It's been just bananas. Now we're starting to see a more regular pattern set up, and that goes on to try to develop. So that's important to track. And it's important because of this tweet here. And this is where you tie it all in and you kind of bring everything home. The typhoon over here in the Westpac, all the stuff I just showed you with the GFS, and that leads us to this. Late September into early October is likely going to be put up or shut up time for the Atlantic, as the MJO moves over the basin during the termination phase of the West African monsoon. There's a lot to unpack there. What did Eric say? So basically, the West African monsoon, and we can see that where it's been traced in this plot, has generally been north of where it should be. But as we get towards the late month, it gradually, naturally goes back, it creeps back south. It's just the way the world works, climatology, right? So as that happens, and I just showed you that coming into fruition with that tropical wave that comes off, coincidental with that, the MJO is forecast by the models. Again, it's kind of weird saying that because they failed us a little bit, but we'll keep seeing what happens. The models are suggesting this is what you want to look at, the right side over here. This is the 5th through the 9th. There's all your rising motion. And guess where the typhoon is? Right there. See how that works? All this brown in here? Bad for hurricanes. Lots of sinking motion. Rising motion, sinking motion. All right? 10th to the 14th of September. It gets a little bit more favorable here in the East Pac. There's our MJO signature, though. 15th to the 19th of September. Hey, guess what? That tropical wave starts to come off during that time frame. And this is more green, more rising. Forcing, tropical forcing. 20th to the 24th of September, bam, the MJO is sitting in the Atlantic Basin, presumably, and that would be, as Eric said, the put up or shut up time for the Atlantic mechanics to get their acts in gear, and something could happen. Ergo, you need to start paying attention more as we get towards that time frame, because we are not out of the woods. And this is the data that I'm showing to you. This doesn't guarantee we're going to have a hurricane. Absolutely not. But this shows us there are reasons to stay on top of things, and don't put your hurricane supplies yet away, whatever. I got it backwards, away yet. And, just pay attention. That's it. All right? So there you go. Plus, we know this. The water temperatures are still way above normal, generally speaking. And some of them cases they are. 2 or 3 degrees Celsius is a lot higher than they should be. And the La Nina is still strengthening. Same old song and